Hey everyone, it's the Geeky Gamer. Earlier this year I started a new type of video on the channel, animations made in GMod, largely inspired by SMG4. Now, SMG4 is ending at the end of the year, and I don't have any more animations planned for the rest of the year. I got a few bigger videos planned. I might do some kind of SMG4 tribute animation at the end of the year, but I'll figure that out when we get closer. I figured now would be a good time to look back at the 4 animations I made so far, and show you all a glimpse into my mind while making them. I'm going to do one video for each animation, starting by rewatching and doing some commentary, go into my thought processes and a bit of how I made them, as well as, details, jokes, and references that people might have missed. Then I'll take a look at the full recordings to point out some bits of how I set things up and did the animation, showcasing all my tricks. Basically a similar structure to the commentary streams for Half-Life VR, but the AI is self-aware. We're going to start with the first one I did back in February, and the shortest, which is Who Broke It? SMG4 Animation. It's not as interesting as some of the others, but we all gotta start somewhere.
So, who broke it?
So, just right off the bat, obviously, Who Broke It is a pretty iconic bit from Parks and Recreation. I've never watched Parks and Rec, but, the Who Broke It bit is very widespread across a whole bunch of fandoms. Like, a lot of fandoms have their own interpretations of the scene with their own characters. I don't remember exactly where I first saw it, or, like, how I first got introduced to the bit, but it was a while ago. Yeah, I'm looking at, like, some older stuff that I made a long time ago, and I first made a sort of interpretation of this back in 2021. Not with SMG4 characters. I was watching SMG4 at the time, but it was with some different characters, like some OCs and stuff. I don't remember where I first found it. It might have been incorrect quotes or something. Yeah, it's an iconic bit. A lot of fandoms have their own interpretations of it, so this was my SMG4 interpretation. And obviously SMG4 is Ron or Rob, the boss guy with the mustache. I think he's the boss. I don't know. Again, I've never watched Parks and Rec. Obviously, asking who broke it. We'll talk about this in the full footage, but the way I did the kind of impacts on the coffee machine, I basically just took the base Half-Life 2 pulse rifle and just shot at the coffee machine prop. And this prop and the whole map is the fan-made Showgrounds map by an eye artist. I think that's how it's meant to be pronounced. That's how it's spelled out. And it's a good map. There's a bit of jank to some of the props and stuff. And at this point, I'm really waiting for the official map. I really hope it gets released when the series ends, because the fan-made map is good, but it's got a couple problems. They don't even have the meme factory, and also they added Maggie's house behind the castle for some reason. And also there's a weird bug with it where if you're at a certain height level and looking towards Maggie's house, the entire skybox turns pitch black. And that certain height level is crouching on the pathway around the castle or standing on the grass. So you're gonna get a black skybox most of the time. So yeah, I'm really just waiting for the official map. But we gotta wait to find out, what's in the boarded up room, what's upstairs. Maybe that'll be in the finale movie. Anyway, back to the actual commentary.
I'm not mad. I just want to know.
So I'm glad I was able to actually fill out the scene with just original characters. I'm not against using Mario and Luigi, but I really wanted to focus on the original characters for this meme. And I feel like I was really able to fit them all in well, connect them all to the characters in the original scene from Parks and Rec.
I did. I broke it.
No, you didn't.
And so, Tori would probably be the one to, fess up to it, even though, she didn't do it. Everyone knows she didn't do it. She kind of feels like she'd, take the fall for it and, try to fix it so that we can just move on. But, of course, Ford knows it wasn't her. It's don't take the fall for something you obviously didn't do. And, we're starting to see, some of the bits of the animation where it's just kind of...
No, you didn't.
Just kind of wiggling them around. And I've got their hands welded to their heads, so that the hands move, as I'm wiggling them by the head.
Tom?
Don't look at me.
And of course, Ford looks to Bob first, because Bob is the most likely to break something, probably, besides Mario. But like I said, I wanted to focus on the OCs.
Look at Ben.
And of course, he tries to pass the blame off to Boopkins, because Boopkins is his fall guy for all this sort of stuff.
What? I didn't break it.
Huh, that's weird. How'd you even know it was broken?
I love how... I still love this, Bob leaning down to Boopkins' level with that sort of suspicious face. It is the zoom in. Yeah, of course, Bob pulling the troll logic.
Because it's sitting right in front of us and it's broken.
And seeing Boopkins actually be, kind of rational voice of reason, he's normally just kind of the goofy guy. One of the goofy guys, because he's kind of childish, but it's kind of fun seeing him be a bit more serious here.
Suspicious.
The further zoom in, Bob's getting closer. The resolution does drop a bit here because of I was actually like zooming in the footage instead of like zooming in. Because I was kind of zooming in on like with the actual GMod camera, but I was also zooming in the footage, so that's why it looks a bit lower res. But it's easier to tell in the actual when you're watching the actual video instead of this version here.
No, it's not.
It's kind of funny. You don't often see Boopkins like getting annoyed and kind of angry. It does not happen very often.
If it matters, probably not. But April was the last one to use.
And seeing like 3 actually just kind of trying to help. He's a good guy, but and of course he somewhat accuses Maggie, and she does. I don't know. You guys, if you're watching this, you probably know the characters. You probably know like this is generally how they would act in this situation. They'd match up.
Liar, I don't even drink that crap.
Oh, really? Then what were you doing by the coffee cart earlier?
I used the wooden stirrers to push back my cuticles.
So, I'm not sure how many people even know what cuticles are, because they talk about cuticles in the scene, and it's like this little bit of skin just over like the base of your fingernail. And I didn't know how many people would actually know what that is, so I had the idea to have like Maggie pull out her phone and just show a picture of a cuticle. And the funny part is like she still has a squid phone, like one of the squid phones from Splatoon, and you can see the screen is arrow shaped. So I cut out the image that I found on Google or wherever I found it, and I cut it out to match with the screen. I just thought that was good.
Everyone knows that, Jerry.
Okay.
And obviously, like these two have some of the shortest fuses in the cast. They would absolutely get into a fight over something as stupid as this. But then Tari comes in to try breaking it up.
Let's not fight. I broke it. Let me pay for it. Run.
Tries to break it up, solve the whole issue, and then
No.
these faces shrinking the pupils. Like, shrinking the pupils is one of the best ways to show shock. Actually, something interesting. So there's a difference in a lot of the models between face-posed eyes and eye-posed eyes. Eye-posed eyes are kind of, using the actual kind of source engine eye posing where they can, look at you. So you can have them kind of, point to look at you, point their eyes at something in the environment, or you can just kind of move them around. You can affect, how far apart horizontally. And you can also somewhat change the size of the eyes. The problem with that is that it affects the size of all eye-posed eyes of every ragdoll and everything in the scene. So that could be a problem if you're like messing with multiple ragdolls that have eye-posed eyes and you only want to like shrink or grow the eyes on one of them. But then there's face-posed eyes, which have the eyes as like just flat textures. Like essentially, like if you made the eyes invisible, like SMG3's head texture here would just be, completely white eyes here, and then his pupils are a separate texture. And with the facial flexes and stuff like that, those can like move around and you can grow and shrink them. And I much prefer the face-posed eyes, and they've been doing more face-posed eyes on most of the models. Most of the models since, I believe, like Niles and SMG0 were some of the first ones to have face-posed eyes, and then most of the models after that had face-posed. The only ones that I think the only ones they made after that still had eye-posed eyes were Boopkins' second redesign and Maggie's second redesign. So, kind of the problem with Maggie's second redesign, May's just the enhanced model that I'm using, but the eyes really don't shrink or grow that much when you use the slider. So it's kind of hard to make that effect. So what I did here was swapped out for a different enhanced Maggie model that has face-posed eyes that I can more easily shrink. I'm not sure what's going on with the different sized pupils. I didn't recognize that until like literally just now. Must have just been a problem with the model back then. I don't know. Pupils are also slightly different. You can see that I believe they're actually just copied 3's pupils instead of what should be Maggie's actual eye texture.
Who broke it?
And so, obviously, they're all getting shocked that 4 is actually getting angry and yelling at them after he previously said he wasn't mad, just wanted to know. And just seeing everyone in shock, Ruben's face just all scrunched up in shock and just super bulged out his eyes. And then Psycho seems to be more nonchalant about this, just like, whoa. Yeah, there's a bit of weirdness where, like, just the others all completely disappear. Just so we can focus on just Boopkins and Psycho for this shot. If I were doing this again, if I were redoing this, I probably wouldn't have done that. Probably would have just, like, done a bit more of a zoom in, but it's all kind of hard because you're dealing with the tallest and shortest characters in the main cast. So you kind of have to zoom out to get them both in frame.
Run.
I was kind of proud when it changes, Boopkins is in the exact same position. Just his face changes. And it just makes it feel a lot smoother.
Ron, Don has been awfully quiet.
And just like the slight head tilt. And then
Really? Yeah.
that sort of like really motion that she does. I believe that was done like first try, and it looked good. Most of the time, like, I'm not using any actual animation tools. Like, I know there's stop motion helper and stuff like that. I'm not using any of that. I'm just doing some good old fashioned, throwing ragdolls around. Throwing ragdolls around, one at a time with the fizz gun. So a lot of the physics and stuff is just kind of taking over for doing the various animations. But like that kind of worked really well as a good motion.
Really? Yeah, really.
The sort of just kind of sassy hip to the side. Really. Although I did feel like the face that she makes here is a bit awkward, but and then like when everyone's yelling at each other and everything, basically I just welded them all together and I was wiggling one of them. I'm not sure which one I was wiggling. Who said I was just kind of rotating a bit with the fizz gun? I feel it was probably one of the ones in the middle, so probably 3, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it was probably 3, but I'll have to check the full footage when we get to that. And then Mario shows up, and this was actually not intended to happen originally, but like when I was trying to animate, 4 kind of looking at them disappointed and then walking away, I accidentally grabbed the fridge back here, and the fridge back here is basically a ragdoll, and the door is a separate thing. And I grabbed the door and opened it accidentally, and because the model is so janky, I couldn't figure out how to get it back fully into position. So I decided, you know what? The fridge is open. Let's just have Mario be getting some spaghetti out of it, and he's just looking at like, what is going on here? So I thought that was fun. I just added a nice little extra bit of details to the animation. It was a happy accident.
I broke it.
And of course, the confession, 4 broke it, just like in the original clip. It's hard to tell, I think, but yes, throughout the whole thing, this is actually slightly zoomed in from the original footage because I think I forgot to turn off the HUD, so the health indicator is technically like down here. So I had to zoom in to get rid of the health. I did also like kind of accidentally leave it in a couple times in the one thing you can't replace, and we'll get to that, and it's much more noticeable. Well, obviously much more noticeable because I actually left it in.
It burned my hand, so I punched it.
This was probably like the best bit of animation in this whole video, because it's made up of like 4 clips. We've got him moving his hand up to the coffee machine. He touches it. Then we switch to he just burnt his hand on it, so he's got a shocked face. He's pulling his hand away quickly, and then we switch to he's got a fist and he punches the machine, and that goes until his hand makes contact with the machine. And then we switch to the beat up machine, which has a different pattern of pulse rifle impacts, which I used the pulse rifle instead of like one of the actual guns, like with one of the bullet guns, because I didn't want bullet holes. I wanted impact marks, like someone punched it, not someone shot it. And also the impact effects are different because I filmed the whole prior scene first, and this was afterwards. The coffee machine is normally in this spot, and I wanted it back in this spot for this scene, but I couldn't quite get it back in there because the model is a bit janky, like sort of doesn't have physics. So I just reloaded the map and put it back here and shot it with the pulse rifle again, but it gave it a different bullet pattern. This is clearly different. There's not as much on the back thing there, and you can see it is there this time. So yeah, bit of a continuity error. Yeah, it swaps, and then I finished the fist motion, the punching motion. And then we switched to, like, he's like, oh dang, I just broke that thing.
It burned my hand, so I punched it.
And it all comes together, like, fairly seamlessly, fairly smoothly. Like, you can still tell there's obviously a transition, but it creates a good illusion.
And so I punched it. I predict 10 minutes from now, they'll be at each other's
This is the
throats,
most boring shot in the
their
video.
faces
It's
and a
just
big gun on
him.
a stick.
It's just, like, me wiggling him around to do the talking thing, but there's not much going on there anyway. And then we have the shot. It's just a still shot. It probably would have been good if this was actually animated. But the problem with that was the way I went about showing it on this scene. Because this right here, I believe what I did was I just took a screenshot of that and took a screenshot of this computer monitor and used the 3D transform tool in GIMP to like basically pin the corners to the edge, to the corners of the monitor, because I didn't know how to do that in Shotcut, which is what I use for editing. And it was later that I found out about the corner pin tool. So I don't believe I actually used the corner pin tool in this, but I might have. I'm not sure. But because I was focusing on doing it as just a screenshot and 3D transform in GIMP, that's why that had to be still. But I did make a little bit of a scene back here. You know, yeah, making 3 fighting, Boopkins and Bob teaming up. I love, you know, Bob lifting the coffee machine and Boopkins standing on top of it, screaming. And then Tari's just kind of cowering about the whole fight. It feels pretty in character. I'm not super happy about, you know, how Tari's gotten kind of flanderized over the past 2 years-ish, because they just forgot about the character development in Western Spaghetti, but realistically, if her friends are starting to fight each other and they're pulling out bombs and stuff, she can only be so brave when they start pulling out high explosives. And if Ford just left the camera, which this is just the GMod camera model, left the camera on the desk, and that camera actually is pointing. That camera is the one that I used to take this shot, this angle. And Mario is just, you know, happily eating some spaghetti, just completely oblivious to the chaos.
Good. I was getting a little chummy around here.
He absolutely would do this. He would absolutely stir up something just to get some content. I just sort of built a bit of a headcanon of, you know, in-universe SMG4, he's just causing some chaos to happen just so we can get content. Although I think that might have actually been somewhat confirmed in some videos, like, where it shows him, like, actually, you know, trying to make a video, like, giving the crew a script or something, and putting them on an adventure. But it just seemed like a fun, you know, aspect of his character, that having him stirring stuff up just for a video. And then I didn't do any sort of credit card for the other animations. Like, I did a whole credit sequence for Kris and Susie's Weird Route, but I didn't do this credit sort of thing for the other 2 SMG4 animations. They just kind of abruptly end. But yeah, there's NI Artist. You can look that up on Steam to find their stuff. They make a lot of really good models. So that's the whole thing. Let's take a look at some of the full footage. This here was pretty much the first bit of actual animation I did. This first clip. Just wiggling forward around for that first bit of him talking. It's a historic clip. I don't remember if I may have changed it because of him moving his hand there. Oh no, I ran with that. That's just still image. Man, these aren't that interesting if it's just still images. Very meticulous about face posing and just really trying to capture expressions well. So basically when I'm ready to start, I have the camera in place, I have my fizz gun pointed at the body part that I want to move from, like animate with. I hit my hotkey to switch to the camera view. And I've got another hotkey that hides the HUD. And I've also got the fizz gun beams just turned off. And then I start moving around. And that's how I do it. It really is as simple as that. And you can, you know, get some animation there. It's a matter of moving the camera. It sometimes helps to remove the camera or just place the camera in a new spot, because you can't place the camera if you're looking directly at a camera. And if your like head hitbox is pretty much in the camera, you're not gonna be able to place a new one. So yeah, I had to place the camera down there just to clear the space. I guess at some point I was gonna have For's eyes be fully closed. Oh yeah, we can see yeah, the full shot of me trying to have Bob lean down to Boopkins. Yeah, I just didn't like that one because he wasn't down as much as I wanted. And that one, you know, source ragdoll jank. Yeah, still not as far down as I wanted. Oh, I probably just kind of, yeah, I cut it before he was leaning down all the way, so it seemed like he just did the rest. And just, again, the super zoomed in. And then I believe, oh yeah, I was also using, I've got this like ragdoll no clip, or like prop no clip mod, that I'm just able to like hold down X and I can no clip stuff, no clip like ragdolls and props through anything. And you see that, yeah, I zoomed in more on the full video. Yeah, so here I can show you what I was talking about with the eye posed versus face posed eyes. I can show you some of the like face posed versus eye posed eyes. So 3 here has face posed eyes. And so I've just got this eye small slider that slide that, and his eyes become tiny. Then on the other hand, we got Maggie, and this model has eye posed eyes, and size of all eyes. You can see it really doesn't shrink the eyes that much. Like, sending it the other way, her eyes definitely grow more, but it's really hard to shrink. And I'm not sure. Okay, so for some reason I only went to try to go into negative 0.1 when it was at negative 0.5. Why didn't I go for a larger negative number to try and make the eyes smaller? I don't know. But anyway, I spawned in this other Maggie ragdoll, and this one has the face posed eyes. But yeah, those are definitely not Maggie's normal pupils. They're basically a purple version of 3's. Maggie's eyes aren't even purple normally. Yeah, her eyes are reddish. I don't know why that model has purplish eyes. And it looks like I cut before I showed however I bulged out Boopkins' eyes like that. Like, sometimes if I'm not doing much, I'll usually just keep the OBS rolling. If I'm like doing a larger scene or making a lot of changes, I'll switch off the recording just to save storage space. Yeah, a huge drive for footage and stuff, but every bit counts. Oh yeah, I just used the eyes big slider, and that bulges his eyes out. Oh yeah, I remember what I was doing. So the original was I just like kept most of her stiff and in place. I also forgot to turn off the health thing, but then I decided to unfreeze the rest of her. Okay, so it wasn't the first time. There's my fizz gun there. It wasn't the first attempt. I was experimenting with like how many parts of her body I would freeze in place to keep from moving. Eventually I went with, pretty much just unfreeze all of her except her hands and her feet. There we go. So it wasn't the first attempt, but yeah, I was experimenting. That's what we do in animation. Yeah, I'm still not entirely happy with that face that she makes when she's going, oh my god. Alright, so who was I wiggling? Yeah, it was 3. It was 3's head. I guess I was experimenting with how many parts to unfreeze. And, oh man, we skipped my accidental opening of the fridge. That must have happened between recordings. And this is where we get, Forrest's confession. And yeah, just during his whole talking thing here, the health indicator was down there in the corner. So I had to zoom in on all the scenes in his office. And then I was originally going to have him like lean forward towards the computer to kind of get to the keyboard. But because of how far out the chair was, it just didn't look right at all. And this is a bit of a more full, you get a bit fuller look at the scene here. Another angle. I don't think there's much that you couldn't see. It's always good to get another angle. Then we're back to the most complex scene that I animated in the whole thing, which was, the punching of the coffee machine. Yeah, it's annoying whenever ragdolls are like bumping up against stuff and they create that dust effect. Because if you want it to happen, or it's like a heavy accident, it can be great for an effect. But if you don't want it to happen, it's infuriating. I haven't had it happen much, but like I imagine it's been rough for some people. So we had experimenting with punching. Like every time pretty much I have to reset and find the hand again. There's me, breaking the machine with the pulse rifle. Just trying to scatter across the whole thing. Sort of trying to recreate the patterns of the original, breaking, but obviously that wasn't going to happen. And then, yeah, I had to clean up all the decals because I accidentally shot the wall. And that's how you get your broken coffee machine. Just shoot it with the pulse rifle. And then this was just here as the monitor. And here I've got the GIMP file of the screens. Not sure why. The file path probably broke on a couple of these, but yeah. So here's the stretched out for the large screen and for the small screen. Oh, file path on that one isn't broken. Yeah, you can see it's just a stretched out screenshot, and it's the same deal with that. And then for Mickey's phone, we've got just the image that I cut out in the shape of the screen. And so that's the whole thing. Like I said, it wasn't much, but it was my start. We all gotta start somewhere. I was still learning the techniques, experimenting with how I wanted to do things, learning, just kind of figuring out some interesting ways to do things, like, pulse rifle to make the impact effects and the decals on the coffee machine, and stitching
Burned
together
my hand,
clips,
so I punched it.
To kind of create the illusion of multiple things happening at once, especially like states of something changing. It was a bit amateurish, but it turned out pretty well as my first one, and it only got better from there. So that's the end of this commentary and behind the scenes look at Who Broke It. And the next time we're going to look at SMG4 and the One Thing You Can't Replace, which was a major step up and the second best out of the ones that I've done so far. That one had a lot more complex stuff to it, a lot more details, so that video is probably going to be longer. Well, also the original video is like 5 times as long, so yeah, that video is definitely going to be longer. But I'll see you then for some more looks into my mind and how I made all this stuff. I'm the Geeky Gamer. See ya!